everyone, and welcome to the Law of Attraction 2.0 Spiritual Straight Talk with G.P. Walsh and myself, Karen Scarpula. Tonight's guest, Beth Misner. She's the best-selling Christian author and inspirational speaker. She's the author of Jesus and the Secret, Where the Word of God and the Law of Attraction Intersect. She, along with her husband, own and operate Business Network International, which is the largest networking organization, and the BNI Foundation, which supports children's education around the world. Beth is a Christian meditation and prayer leader, as well as a certified sports nutritionist, black belt in karate, studies and practices Tai Chi and Qigong. And most recently, she has authored the upcoming book, The Misner Plan, and she's here tonight to discuss how the spirit, mind, body, and how all these three aspects of our life are intertwined. Welcome, Beth.
Thanks, Karen, for that great introduction.
You're welcome. You have quite the resume. I couldn't even get it all in. Those were just the highlights.
Makes me feel tired just hearing it all.
You have a lot of energy. I do have to say that. Well, before we begin tonight, I'd like to remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, please press *6, and I'll be alerted that you have a question. Remember, *6 to ask a question of either Beth or G. G, I know that you've long believed in the spirit-mind-body connection, and I was hoping you might give us a little background before Beth takes us into a deeper discussion.
Well, I kind of ran into this stuff in the 60s, and the connection between how we think, how we feel, how we live, and our physical experience became pretty obvious to me, even at a time when there wasn't really much research about it. And I was thinking about how to express it tonight, but the thing that really moves me as I'm sitting here thinking about it just before it became my time to say something is how much it has meant to me and to the people that I've taught over the years that this mind-body-spirit connection is real. Because it's not just interesting, it's liberating. Right? I mean, it's to truly understand that is the end of victimhood, and opens up the possibility to actually be the master of your own life, and to find within yourself the resources by which you can live wholly and free and complete, and acquire a wisdom about how things really work. In all the great religious traditions, the essence of it is, what's the truth? How are things really? And to discover that there is this beautiful continuum between what we call the physical, what we call the emotional, what we call the mental, and what we call the spiritual, which are really all just different names for the same thing, that there's this continuum between them, that they interact. They're like the playful different kinds of energies, or but different notes of the scale, or different colors of the rainbow. They're all part of the same thing. And to begin to discover that is really to begin to discover your own wholeness. Because when we study anything, what we're really studying is ourselves. There's a beautiful line from the Zen master Dogen Zenji, who was the founder really of the Soto school of Zen, which has been around for a very long time, and it's still there. And he says, to study the way is to study yourself. To study yourself is to forget yourself. To forget yourself is to be enlightened by the entire world. It's such a beautiful way of putting it, because to really discover how things really work is to discover how you really work. And that's where liberation is. That's when we really step into freedom, and not only freedom, but power. We can make things happen, and we do it with this open and free heart and full of compassion. So the mind-body thing has been around for a long, long time, but what it means to me was and still is my own personal liberation from suffering.
That's such a unique way to look at it, I think. And I think in nicely to where Beth is coming from with her discussion this evening. And again, I want to thank you for being our guest tonight on our show.
Hi, Beth.
Hi, hello. Good evening. So happy to be here. And gee, I have to. You did your opening comments. I was just sitting here soaking them up. So thank you so much for your wisdom.
So I had the chance, Beth, to read your unpublished manuscript. I didn't have the chance to sit next to you and hear your story live. That would have been amazing. After reading your manuscript, I was just blown away by your story and journey. And I'd like to just start tonight by letting you share that with our listeners, if you would.
Thank you so much. It's really a tale of two lives kind of interwoven, because the story is mostly relating to my husband. About a year and a half ago, my husband, Ivan, was told something that none of us ever want to be told, and he was told that he had cancer. I know, Karen, you've walked with a spouse, an ex-former spouse, a loved one who had this experience as well, and I have to really found your book powerful and enjoyed reading it over the weekend. Thank you for sharing it.
Oh, thank you.
Although the focus was similar, the two experiences we had were so different, but yet our hearts are the same, and I could tell that when I was reading your book. The type of cancer Ivan was diagnosed with was prostate cancer, and it wasn't necessarily a small tumor or a minuscule amount. It was a fairly good-sized lesion. He had 12 core biopsies taken, and 8 came back with adenocarcinoma in them. So his doctor was able to tell that this is the slower-growing type. He had 9 months to a year to kind of research treatment options and decide which route he wanted to go for his treatment. The doctor didn't get real hyper about it. He said, don't be afraid. This is imminently curable. We can, you can have many different approaches for this. So just take some time, research it, come back, and then let's talk about your treatment options. So during that 9 months or so, he radically changed his diet. He started exercising a little bit more than he had been doing before. He started meditating. He started focusing on getting good quality sleep. He de-escalated his stress level, and within 9 months, he was in remission.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And the doctor, the urologist, is a surgeon, and he's there to help you with the surgery for your cancer. He said to my friend, what did you do? And he told in his clinic, you need to talk to this patient. He did nothing, and his cancer's in remission. And I even overheard him saying that to his partner. And when she came into the treatment room, she said, now, tell me again what you did. And he said, this is what I did. And she said, so you didn't do anything? And he says, well, I guess it depends on your definition of not doing anything. Because for him, it was huge to make these changes that he made.
Yeah.
And that's where we are now. We're 18, 19 months post-diagnosis. He just went about 3 weeks ago for another round of tests. And not only is he still in remission, but all of his numbers are in the normal range, and there aren't any cancer markers showing up at all. The ultrasound is completely negative. The PCA3 test, which is a new genetic test for prostate cancer, makes a biopsy not quite as necessary to rule out or to diagnose. That's in the normal range. His PSA number is normal for a man his age, and so he continues to follow this protocol. Now, why we call it the Misner plan, it's basically good eating, eating healthy food, natural food, eliminating chemicals from your diet. But we have an organization called BNI that we co-own and operate, and BNI has over 160,000 members. And most of these members are pretty familiar with Ivan, and they see him on videos or they see him live in person. And he has made a dramatic change. He's lost about 40 pounds. He looks younger now. And they're going, what have you done? And our members really want to know more about what he's done. So we put it all into a website. We're releasing a book, and we'll be releasing a cookbook that has recipes from the recipes and the menus that we have come up with. Keep us very excited about supper time and breakfast and lunch. And when we travel, we go over all of this with the restaurants that we're going to be going to. We have to plan ahead. We've got to talk to the chefs and let them know we're coming. We're going to be there for a week, and we need a special diet. And everybody's so far been very happy to accommodate us.
Well, the thing that I was struck with, too, in the book was that you were already eating pretty healthy. It wasn't like, you were eating fast food every day and you had this really incredibly unhealthy lifestyle.
I would say that's true for me. And Ivan has said this himself as well. Not quite as true for him. He was very careful about how he ate, but he didn't really care if it was a packaged food or a processed food. That wasn't as important to him. And one of his best friends was Diet Coke.
Oh my gosh.
We had very fun wedding vows. We had serious and funny wedding vows. And one of the funny vows from almost 25 years ago was that I would cook in the refrigerator. And, I have to say he's released me from that vow.
Goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily so true for him. And now I find myself, don't tell anybody. I don't know if he's listening or not. Every so often when I'm out and about on my own, I'll sneak a York peppermint patty. But, it's one time in maybe 5 or 6 weeks. It's not every day or every week. It's very rare that I'll do something like that. But departure from where I had been, where I would go up to Starbucks and get a zucchini walnut muffin and a latte or a hazelnut latte or something full of sugar and unhealthy fats and not even think twice about it.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the foods that you found you really had to be off limits for you guys.
Well, let me preface what I'm going to say with just a little bit of background. When the body develops a tumor or lesion or overgrowth of cancer, we all have cancer cells in our body. Cancer cells are cells that have damaged DNA. They don't always replicate and they don't always clump together in tumors that can affect our life, but we all have cancer cells. And when our bodies become toxic, it's harder and harder for the immune system to repair those cells or destroy those cells, which your body has the capacity to do that. The fascinating thing to me, and we can get this in a little bit, is that your mental state and your emotional state, your spiritual state, has a huge impact on how well your immune system functions. So when you have a body which is somewhat toxic or maybe overly toxic, anything that is an irritant to the system is going to make things worse. So gluten is an irritant to most of our bodies. Not everybody has the same reaction to gluten as others do. I have a pretty extreme reaction to gluten. Ivan necessarily doesn't. But given the time that he was dealing with active growth of a lesion, he eliminated gluten. Dairy is another irritant. Dairy causes inflammation and congestion. And when you are building a strong, robust immune system, it needs to be eliminated. Sugar is another one. Sugar can depress the immune system. It also can accelerate cancer growth. So sugar, any and all forms of refined sugar. We did have a small amount of honey in our diet when he had the active cancer growth. We are allowing a few more things now that his numbers are all in the normal range, but processed sugar is still off the menu. Red meat, completely off the menu. The only meat that we ate during the time he was not in remission, we ate some types of seafood. There are some seafood types that are extremely toxic. Tuna has high levels of mercury. That wasn't on our menu. Sea bass, again, high levels of mercury. Those foods were not on our menu. Mm-hmm. But shellfish, cod, haddock, He should have been eating sardines, but he hates sardines.
I'm with him.
I didn't serve any sardines or those anchovies.
Anchovies.
Yeah, those are extremely beneficial. He took large numbers of fish oil, probably took up to 12 capsules a day of fish oil supplement. Vinegar was off the menu because vinegar is a byproduct of the sugar processing and metabolization process in the body, so we eliminated vinegar. Alcohol, with the exception of red wine, he did have 1 glass of red wine every day. There are some foods that have a negative impact on the body when you're dealing with cancer that also have beneficial effects if you have them in quantities. And red wine is one of those, very high in polyphenols and resveratrol. So we did have that. The honey, again, has an antibiotic, natural antibiotic and antifungal properties as antiviral properties. So we did allow honey on our diet. And any GMO food that we know of, we didn't touch it. We just believed that the GMO foods are going to depress our immune system because our body developed in the way that can process those foods well.
Yeah, it's completely unknown territory. I mean, it's just like, what is this?
Right.
What is this? I mean, it's completely confusing to the system. It's actually going to stress it rather than
so
give
we
it any kind of
eliminated
benefit.
all those.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
So you talk about in your book, besides just modifying your diet, that you started to create sort of a safe environment for you guys. You looked at good thoughts and only watched things that had positive influence. You viewed uplifting and humorous television shows. So tell us how that piece, the whole good thoughts, because that's very much of attraction, how the whole mind to come into place.
Well, I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not a psychiatrist or a neurologist or a brain specialist, but I've learned quite a bit through this experience. And one of the first things we learned was that your mind doesn't differentiate between fact and fiction. So when you're watching a show with a chase scene or with heavy violence and all of that, your body begins to excrete cortisol. Your cortisol levels accelerate, they raise, your adrenaline races in your body, and that depresses the immune system. The opposite happens when you watch things that are heartwarming, that bring a smile or a tear to the eye, or are very uplifting or funny. Your body begins to excrete the feel-good hormones, which also a class of hormones that are excreted are opiates. So, these are things you want in the body that build up the immune system and relax you and have the opposite effect with cortisol and adrenaline, which are going to deplete your immune system. So, yeah, we were very intentional about what we watched. If it was something depressing or scary or upsetting in any way, we didn't watch it. We just didn't watch it. We went purposely to the feel-good shows, the uplifting, funny. And Ivan, my husband's not a workaholic, but he's very focused when he does work. And he had to step away from the computer a little bit more. He had to do things like just sit in the back patio and just enjoy watching the birds as they're flying around in the back area here and dogs, and doing things like that help settle his mind and relax him.
Well, I know there's research done. Gee, I don't know if you can add anything to this about the effects of laughter, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a whole yoga practice.
There's
a whole laughing yoga practice where you'll just,
really?
Yeah, you laugh. I mean, you just laugh. You get going, and actually, once you get going, it feels kind of funny at first, but once you get started, your body just loves it so much. You really do it, even though you're not really laughing at anything. But yeah, it's just been shown that when you're happy, even if your happiness is artificially induced in the beginning, The body doesn't care. It just starts generating all the chemicals that are extremely positive for the system. They relax everything. They take everything off of alert. It removes the stress out of the system, which is the number one thing that's killing all of us, right? Is just is the system. And stress is simply nothing but the nervous system being overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that it has to deal with. It's just too much information coming up, out, in, and it cannot process it properly. So it just kind of has to retrench, and it becomes more defensive. It becomes more closed down, and when it becomes more closed down, it starts acting like it's in fight or flight mode. And so it begins shutting down critical functions and routing all the energy to the defense mechanisms. So blood pressure goes up, certain chemicals get released into the environment, the important organs that we all love, like the brain, get reduced in function because you don't need the brain if your body's just going to hightail it, right? And that's really what's happening. So when you that laughter and humor and happiness send a signal to the body that everything's okay, that there's nothing it has to be on the alert about, which just releases all of that stuff from the system. And the other beautiful thing about it, that it not only just releases the system, if you do it long enough, it cleans the toxic stuff out. It actually removes it completely from the body. If it doesn't have enough time, it may not be generating any new, but the old stuff is still there. It's got stored away. But if you have enough time in that state, it really starts cleaning house, because it thinks, oh, I'm okay now. I'm normal. I can. This is my normal now. I can start doing stuff. I mean, we're really learning how the body actually functions, and it shouldn't come as no surprise that it feels good to laugh, because it is good.
And that's a perfect example of the physical and the metaphysical combination that we are.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, who'd have thought happiness felt good? Gee, who knew?
That's a novel idea. This is groundbreaking. Beth, I think one of the other things that you talked about that I wanted to be sure that you had an opportunity to share more with our listeners was this whole idea, and I don't know that I saw it mentioned so much in the book, but you and I talked about it, the fact that you never owned the cancer. It wasn't your cancer. So could you talk more about that? Because I think that so plays into the mind, body, spirit concept, right? Many of us get sick and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sick. I feel terrible. Oh my, I've got a fever. I've got you really start to own your illness. So tell us about how you and Ivan handled that.
He really surprised me at how purposeful he was to never say, I have cancer, my cancer. He very rarely even spoke the word cancer. He said, I've got a health challenge that I'm addressing right now. I have a health condition that I'm taking care of. I'm building my immune system. And it'd be great to have him here too, to ask him specifically, why did he become so purposeful about that? But I think if I could probably answer that on his behalf, I would have to say that he did not want to take ownership of something that could destroy his life. And I think that he really understands one of the main principles of the law of attraction, which is the more you focus on it, the bigger it will get in your life. And he wanted to focus on the immune system being strong. He actually was told by one of his doctors to print out a photograph of one of the killer cells, because they've got photographs of microscopic enlargements of these killer cells. And
great.
Put that somewhere where you can see that. And when you meditate, think about those killer cells getting stronger and going after any damaged cell that needs to be taken out of the system.
The doctor suggested that.
Yeah, one of his doctors did. Actually, it was the urologist that suggested that. Learn more about how the body works and how the system works, and apply your attention to it so that it can work more effectively, more efficiently. The other thing was interesting, Karen. I found myself thinking we are dealing with this issue. And I had to stop and say, okay, I'm not having a PSA test done tomorrow.
Thankfully, right?
This is happening. This is happening. So there was some temptation on my part to kind of be enmeshed with Ivan. And while, yes, we are having this experience together because we share our lives with each other, he's the one with the health issue, and I'm healthy. So I had to really be intentional about not taking it into myself.
Yes.
Because it was very tempting for me to do that and to think we have cancer. And that's not true. We didn't have cancer. So I had to really condition myself, as he was doing, to do that for myself. The other thing he was really purposeful about was not to ever say, I'm fighting cancer, or I'm battling with this. He always, and I was so impressed with him, because if you know my husband, he's not the most esoteric, spiritually driven kind of guy. He's very pragmatic and realistic. Not that I'm not, because I am more spiritual, but for him to really get that was so profound for me. And instead he said, I'm building my immune system. I'm doing these dietary changes because I'm getting healthy and getting as healthy as I can be. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
That's such a great way to phrase it, to just not take on the negative nature of it, and to say, I'm building myself and I'm creating a healthier life.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to point about that is that what you did was, I don't want that glossed over, because that's really very, very powerful. Because people get into a position like that. And actually, this happens all the time to people who are alternative healers and helpers by career, that they do tend to get kind of wrapped up in the story. There's a certain kind of an ego rush into being engaged in this thing. And for you to not participate in that drama, that door for that kind of energy to come in wasn't open.
Right.
You really kept that space very pure for him to just really be dealing with this directly without anything from the outside, which in my mind made it easier for him to do. I mean, you provided him a space where, boy, he started at a really high place, because you weren't bringing anything negative into the picture. There was no attraction in the drama for you. I got to commend you for that. I mean, that's way more important than people realize.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I think as I think back, that was really done purposefully. I knew from the time he called me, because I didn't even go with him to his appointment where he was diagnosed, because we were so sure that it was just an aberration, that there was maybe an infection in the prostate gland. It couldn't be cancer because there weren't any other symptoms, that I didn't even go with him to the appointment. So from the time he called me until we were then face-to-face again, I had two epiphanies. And it was a short amount of time, about 2 hours. I was down in San Diego, and he drove down there to join me from our home, which is 2 hours away. Here were my two epiphanies. The first one was, this is Ivan's experience. What he decides to do and how he decides to address it is his choice. I'm very alternatively health-minded and very holistic-minded. If I were ever to receive that diagnosis, I knew exactly what I would be doing, and surgery and radiation chemotherapy would not be part of it, most likely. And so I kind of, within myself, gave him, not that I needed to give him permission, but I released his experience to him, which is important to note, because a lot of spouses don't and cannot do that. They nag the other spouse. Karen, you had that experience. With
I was the nagging spouse.
Well, and then eventually you realized you had to let that go and let him do it how he was going to do it. The other thing was, I recognized that I needed to be as available for Ivan as I could be. So there were several things I was engaged with and involved with that I eliminated for that time. And I realized that I was going to need to be cooking a lot more. I actually started getting up 2 hours before we were going to have breakfast to cook a fresh, homemade, from scratch breakfast and lunch that I sent with him off to work. So I had to really balance my own schedule, because I did not want to get used up. I wanted to be able to have the energy and the internal strength to be there in the long haul for him no matter what came.
So that's another big point, I think, to point out too, is that when you tend to be the other part of the equation in a situation like this, you tend to not take care of yourself. That's just, you're giving everything to everybody, and especially to your spouse who needs you to care for them. And you knew you were going to have to do some things that required more of you. And I want to commend you for the fact that you knew you also had to take care of you, because I think that often gets left out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
So you talk about the energy. Explain how energy affects us. I know at one point you talk in the book about how difficult it was to make these changes. However, if you don't make these changes, it's sort of, pay now or pay later. Did I phrase that?
Yeah. Well, I laugh because on my Misner Plan Facebook page that we created, I put a post up not long ago about different recipes for great fruit juices and vegetable juices, and the photograph that came along with the recipes, I shared it from another page, were just so beautiful. Dark purple juice and a bright green one, and then that wonderful, lovely orange of all the antioxidants and all of that. And I said, this is a great site. I love these recipes. One of my Facebook friends posted, and this isn't a slam on her whatsoever. I love her. She's a lovely, sweet lady. She said, I love these juices. The downside is, always having to wash the juicer. And without even thinking, I wrote, I would so much rather wash my juicer 3 or 4 times a day than wash a colostomy bag 10 years from now.
Well, that is really...
I'm so glad you didn't edit yourself and just wrote that in there, because that's just too good to lose.
I don't live from this perspective that it's too hard to do the things now that are going to ensure that when I'm older, I have a vibrant, healthy, vital existence. To me, I can't have that vital, healthy, vibrant existence that I want to have when I'm 95 and 100 and 105, unless I do today all those things I need to do to invest in that.
Yeah. No, it is a pain to clean the juicer. I'll tell a little story. I eat pretty healthy. I became a vegetarian I think maybe 20 years ago now. I don't eat any processed foods, but I get a little bit lazy at times and eat stuff that I shouldn't eat. And I guess I got lazy for an extended time, and I found out that I was a borderline diabetic. It's about a year ago.
Wow.
And I think, what the heck? And I had gotten overweight, and I had so what did I do? I went back to what I knew, and I juiced. I did a juice feast. They call it a juice feast, not a fast, because it's everything you need. 7 days later, my book, it was down to like 86. I mean, it was completely normalized. 7 days, and in probably about 2 months, I'd lost the weight. So, pay now, pay later. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not that you can't enjoy yourself. It's okay to go out and eat a pizza every now and then.
But gee, stop right there.
It's a way.
It depends on your definition of enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Since when does going out and having pizza define enjoying yourself?
That's
it gives you a migraine headache and makes you congested, and you feel like crap afterwards.
That's a good point. I actually don't. But I don't eat them every day, I mean, every now and then a pizza and a beer tastes really good. But, but my normal thing is I juice once. One of my meals a day is fresh juice, kale and collard and cucumber and celery. I eat salads mostly. Pretty much the only cooked food I eat is going to be grilled vegetables. So my diet is just so healthy that every now and then a big piece of bread with cheese on it My body can process it in
Right,
an instant. It's not a way of life. It's not like this constant inflow of fat and
right.
irritants that it doesn't know what to do with. It gets overwhelmed with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't mean to say that you have to have a good. I'm not having a good time. This
But
stuff
for so
tastes
many
really good,
people,
but for so many people, you're
it
absolutely
is.
right. They feel deprived.
Right.
But I think most of those people, and I didn't eat particularly well. I grew up in the Midwest where meat was everything. A salad was a chunk of lettuce, iceberg lettuce on top of that.
Yes. With
Completely
blue
doused,
cheese.
in Kraft processed French dressing,
Mm-hmm.
and and but when I started down this course, I mean, the difference was so dramatic. It was so easy to maintain a healthy weight level. I felt so good. I think
Yes.
most people just never actually felt what it means to really be healthy, that they don't know what it feels like.
Right.
And if they did, when they start eating too much of the junk, they would feel it. I mean, I remember as I was making the transition that I had one of those, McDonald's hamburgers, and it was horrible.
Right.
It was
Right.
like, I was like, I just eaten cardboard or something. I was like, my body was going, what the hell are you doing?
What are you doing to me? Yeah. And Ivan and I now, way more than we ever did before, when we're out places and we see the vast numbers of people who are waddling through life, our heart just breaks.
Yes.
Because they are so out of tune and so completely asleep about how they're nourishing themselves that they don't even know the difference.
Well, I think that's the point, is that they're not nourishing themselves. Most people live to eat, not eat to live. And I think that that's the mind shift that you have to have, is that whatever I'm eating and putting in my body is helping me live. I'm not thinking about, well, what is my next meal going to be? When's my next pizza going to be? Right?
Right. Now, you guys, you're kind of giving me anguish because I have a son who lives on pizza delivery, breadsticks, and sodas. And again, I have to say, this is Trey having his experience of life. Now, Trey has watched what we've gone through. In the very beginning, he said to his dad, "Oh, you can't just address this with diet and nutrition. You have to go and have radiation or chemotherapy or surgery. This is not okay." And his dad said, "Listen, this is my experience, and I'm going to address it how I choose to address it." And last week when I was in the laundry room and Trey was in the laundry room with me, he said, "Mom, now notice he said when I develop some serious condition, I'm going to come to you and I want you to do for me what you did for Dad." And I said, "Wait a minute, stop right there." First off, the time for you to address it is now. But second of all, I'm really impressed that you have noticed that there was something that we did that shifted the situation. So even just him saying that gave me hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it opened the door for a later conversation where I asked him, "Look, would you consider, since you're not really open to changing your diet right now, would you consider using a good high-quality multivitamin?" Or in this case, he started taking Juice Plus. So he said yes, he would. So little baby steps. But again, it's him having his experience of life, and the situations that we've been in are definitely going to influence him. And I just wait for it to come into full manifestation.
I go through the same thing with my kids. I actually have them on Juice Plus at college too, because there's just no way to get them to eat healthy at college. When they come home, it's a different story, but at college it's just too difficult. So you just kind of hope that they'll realize once they're out of school that they can make better choices about eating.
And understand that how quickly the body can correct itself. GP, you were borderline diabetic how many months ago, and now I presume you're totally out of the woods.
It was 7 days. It dropped in 7 days, and and as I maintain a normal diet now, it's never gone back up. I mean, I mean, it is remarkable. We're talking about a major miracle here, right? This, your body is perfectly adapted to the environment. It's perfectly adapted to a natural environment. It can't adapt to an unnatural environment. That's the thing with the processed food and refined sugars and GMOs. It's an unnatural environment. The body didn't evolve in that. It's been around for hundreds of millions of years in a particular kind of environment. It's perfectly adapted for that environment. If you give it what's appropriate for that environment, bam, it knows exactly what to do.
I have a friend who is a type 2 diabetic, and he started following the Meister plan, and the second day he stopped taking his insulin because he didn't need it.
Sweet.
His blood sugar normalized in 2 days. That's how quickly the body can go back into a normal state.
Yeah. The body knows what to do. We just stress it out. We don't give it ample opportunity to do exactly what it does know how to do. That's what's miraculous about it. It's a perfectly functioning machine if you give it what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think the other thing is a lot of the things that we ingest and eat, we develop addictions to. And so you've got to give your body, I think a lot of people when they're making that shift, right, are struggling with eliminating sugar from their diet. Or like I know when I eliminated caffeine from my diet, I used to get horrible headaches because I was used to having caffeine all the time. So you have to give your body time to kind of wind down off of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let me give you a little example. Refined sugar, that's a nice name. Cocaine is refined cocoa. Cocaine is refined cocoa, okay? When you take something and you take one substance out of it and you take it and put it in its most purest form, you have a refined thing. That's what cocaine is. That's why it's dangerous. People eat cocoa, you can make tea out of cocoa leaves. Right? And it's perfectly harmless, right? But when you take it in concentrated, and that's what sugar is. It's the sweet stuff in sugarcane and beets and that sort of stuff that has been so concentrated that it's delivered directly to the system like an injection. That's why it's dangerous.
You have given me the verbiage I needed to explain why we don't eat stevia from the grocery store in those packages, because it's refined. It's no longer in its natural state, and it's not digestible by the body. It's damaging to the body.
And it doesn't matter. Eat the most healthy stuff because there's nothing wrong with beet sugar. There's nothing wrong with cane sugar.
Right.
When it's taken within the complex matrix of the plant, which is that the body is used to, it's a certain proportion of the sugar, a certain proportion of all these other things that the body knows how to use it, take what it needs. It needs all of it in order to process all of it, and it gets rid of what it doesn't need. But when you throw out the natural environment and you get one piece of it in a highly concentrated form, the body just freaks.
Yeah.
We have a call. We have a question.
Good.
Hi, John. I understand you have a question for us tonight.
I have no anonymity now from here.
You absolutely don't. I'm calling you out every time you raise your hand.
I am Percival Mandrake from the Isle of Wight. Okay. I love this show because I've been pretty much 90% plus vegan for quite a while now, and most of the people in my immediate family are doing so for a variety of reasons, even the young kids, and mostly the girls because they look awesome and they love their bodies and the way they feel. It's just really getting a lot of traction out of that. And their friends are getting into it too. It's really exciting. But one of the things I just wanted to say for the other listeners is that if you believe that you need sugar and cheese and large amounts of food and all these things, just remember that the body is a survival machine and it's been trained to survive in substandard conditions. And
it's true.
And it's so amazing when you roll back this hyper active or this hyper accelerated flavors of processed sugar and all this addictive cheese and all that. Me personally, I found that after a few weeks of effort, my body recalibrated and I wasn't wanting that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you eat it, you feel really bad. Like your body just doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah. that happy Friday, that happy go to pizza thing you guys were talking about. Yeah, that day after, you feel like you're just this big phlegmy thing of just yuck. You know?
Oh, very true, Don.
The phlegmy thing.
I
That's
kind
good.
of jumped in a little late tonight. Did you guys talk about filtered water?
We haven't gotten to that
We
yet.
haven't gotten to that. So great segue, Don. Thank
Oh,
you.
that I live by that. I mean, I just can't even drink water that isn't filtered anymore. I bought the system for my house, paid a little extra. I cook with it, bathe with it, drink with it, and oh my goodness, it's been over a year now, and it just is miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, that's all I had. Great show. I'm gonna go offline and listen to your response.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don.
So, Beth, do tell us about the water, because that was a big part of the Misner plan as well. So talk about your journey with the water.
Well, yeah, there are things in your normal city municipal water that you do not want in your body. Chlorine is one, fluoride is another, dissolved solids, your things like arsenic and prescription medications. I mean, it's all in there. So we did get a whole house water filter system. Actually, I put a whole house system on our home about 3 years ago. We changed our pool to a saltwater pool 3 years ago, prior to the diagnosis. I was already on that track. However, we added a component, which is a reverse osmosis system under the sink, so that our cooking water and the water we make tea out of and drink also goes through that RO process to eliminate the dissolved solids, because the whole house filter system that we have did not do that step. And then it adds back in certain minerals, phosphates, and things to keep the water on an alkaline side. So let's talk about alkaline water. I heard many years ago that the first thing you need to do if you're diagnosed with cancer is start drinking alkaline water, because you have to alkalinize the body. And the more research I did about alkalinizing the body, the more I realized that that's really a metaphor. You're never going to actually alkalinize your body, and you don't want to. There are parts of your body that have to be acidic for you to be healthy. Your skin has an acid mantle that has to be preserved, and most of the soaps and shampoos we use strip that acid mantle away, and our skin is not protected. So you need to be really intentional about what you use to bathe with as far as a soap or a cleanser. And what I use is coconut oil and sea salt.
Oh.
That's what I use in the shower, coconut oil and sea salt. And, nobody's ever accused me of smelling bad.
Your very own body scrub.
Right. But in the stomach, of course, the stomach has to be acidic for you to digest food. But it is important to eliminate the high acid content of our diet, because we can end up with too high of a level of acidity in the body. And then that predisposes our body tissues to have damaged DNA cells and grow, proliferate cancer, and your tumors get bigger and so on and so forth. So we do drink alkaline water. We don't drink alkaline water when we eat, because we don't want to stress the stomach. You can't really dilute your stomach acids, because the minute the acidic level is too low in the stomach, the endothelial cells say, oh, produce more acid, produce more acid, produce more acid. But we don't want to stress the stomach by making it do that while we're trying to eat and digest a meal. The small intestine needs to be alkaline, and typically if you've got beneficial bacteria that's flourishing in your small intestine, you're alkaline there. What happens when we take antibiotics and kill all of our bacteria, good and bad, is that then our small intestine becomes too acidic. So the problem with being too acidic or having acidosis in your body is what we wanted to address, and drinking alkaline water can help with that. So yeah, we each drink about 2 liters we're drinking Evian bottled water in glass bottles. We completely have eliminated plastic water bottles. And we say to people, if they offer us a plastic water bottle, we do not drink water in plastic. Mm-hmm. Now, there are BPA-free plastics now that we will drink. And I will tell you, I won't get dehydrated if there's nothing but plastic water bottles. I'll drink plastic water bottle. But our preference is to have filtered water or our Avion water in glass bottles.
That's wonderful. I didn't even know. I've not even found Avion in glass bottles.
We have found it all over the world. We actually have. We got it at the hotel we were at in Thailand. That's just what they serve to everybody.
Oh, wow.
We have found a distributor in Florida that we buy it by the pallet. So a big truck comes to our warehouse and offloads a pallet. That's how important it is to us. We're in this for the long haul.
It is interesting because I go to other countries and I have a place in Argentina and everything comes in a bottle. They don't have plastic bottles like we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Voss is one brand that you can get usually at Whole Foods or other health food stores.
Right.
And you can get still water in a glass bottle. Although I was disappointed to go to Whole Foods in Orlando and they had their Voss water bottles, but the little ones that I like to carry around in my purse were plastic.
Yeah.
Really?
I was shocked.
I didn't know they had a plastic version.
Florida is still a little backwards. When it comes to this, can I say the Botox capital of the country?
Okay. Well, Beth, we're getting close to the end of our hour. I want to be sure that we spend some time talking about when your book's going to be available and how people might find it.
Awesome. All right. So I'm hoping to have the ebook. My plan is to release that next Friday, not this week on Friday, but next Friday. If you follow the Misner Plan on Facebook or you go to MisnerPlan.com, we'll have a link there at the website for a free chapter for you to download. That will be available after this coming weekend. So on Monday, the free chapter download will be available. We are going to produce the book for iTunes downloads, Kindle's download, and then you can also download it from MisnerPlan.com. It's not a real long book, but it is pretty comprehensive, wouldn't you say, Karen? I don't know.
Oh, it is. It's very informational, and it's a great read. I was able to read it in about a day. Yeah. And the information, though, is so good. And I think you present it in such a quick manner. Sometimes those books, I think people feel like they have to give too much research around it.
Yeah.
I think that you shared why you guys chose the things you did and the sort of the quick research behind it. It's a great book. I encourage everybody to get it.
And we start out at the beginning saying, we are not doctors. We are not giving you advice. We are telling you what we did and explaining why we did it. And if any of it seems to make sense to you, then look into it some more, consult your doctor. Consider making some of these shifts yourself. And certainly if you have cancer or any other serious disease, work with your medical professional and take some of these ideas to them and say, hey, what do you think about this? And if you have a medical professional that says, that's not worth your time, don't waste your energy on it, I would say get a different doctor. Find a different doctor. Yeah, that's just not acceptable. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think I liked one of the things you said repeatedly throughout the book was, it's not going to hurt. Like if we try this, it's certainly not going to hurt anything. We have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
Eating more fresh vegetables during the day isn't going to hurt you.
Right. That's not a bad thing.
But always check. I mean, you may have an allergy to Brazil nuts or, anything that we did. Just use your common sense. And if it's something that you have a reaction to. I did have someone that went through phase 1 of the Misner Plan and got really bad hives because one of the supplements that I recommended she was allergic to. So use your common sense. Don't use something or take something just because we did it and are saying, it might be a good thing to do. Get it checked out for yourself. Everybody's body chemistry is different. So MisnerPlan.com. Follow us on Facebook. Ivan and I are getting ready to do 3 weeks of intense PR around the book. We'll be on radio shows and TV shows kind of talking about what we did and the changes that came, the shifts that came.
Great. And do you want to mention the cookbook?
Yes, I'd love to mention the cookbook. The cookbook is in development. It will be a second release, and then eventually we'll print copies that will have the story, our story, and what we've learned together with the recipes. But for now, we're doing it in a 2-part release. So with the cookbook, some of the recipes from the cookbook you can find at MisnerPlan.com. And as we go through the upcoming months before the cookbook's released, more and more recipes are going to be coming up on the website. Things like sugar-free, nearly vegan, organic skillet cornbread. Okay, so we couldn't go get Marie Callender's cornbread anymore, but I'm from the South. I love cornbread, so we came up with a recipe for a cornbread that we can eat that's non-GMO, no sugar, and it's delicious.
Great. Well, I can't wait for the cookbook.
Good.
Good. Well, listen, Gigi, you want to wrap things up for us? We have about 2 minutes left now.
I really hope that some people stumble across this show who are, that are not the choir that we're normally preaching to, because this information is so really important. Back in the 70s, the medical community used to think of chiropractors as quacks, and now all the doctors I know go to one. Medicine on one hand is becoming increasingly expensive and technological and oriented towards physical manipulation, and on the other hand we see this incredible flowering of even people with medical degrees and medical backgrounds embracing natural and alternative healing, because they come to understand that the body does function the way it functions, and if you work with it, it's healthy. If you work against it, it gets sick. It really isn't rocket science. When you look at Asian medicine and the energy healing that's been practiced there for thousands and thousands of years, it was simply a study of the way things actually are. And you work with the energy as it is. If you work with your body, you're going to be healthy. If you don't, you're not. And if you're not healthy, it means you're not working with your body. Listen to it. It knows what it's doing. It's, I like to point out our cognitive ability of the brain and its ability to kind of think. It's about 100,000 years old. It's been 100 years always had this ability. The rest of the body, the nervous system, 400 million years old. So which do you think is smarter?
Beth, I'd like to thank you for being with us tonight. It was such a great discussion. We certainly didn't have time to fill in the hour.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it, and I'm glad John called in. I love when callers come in on the show.
Yes, thank you, Don. And I'm so excited because you're going to be back with us in December to discuss your book, Jesus and the Secret, where the Word of God and the Law of Attraction intersect. So we'll be talking about spirituality and the law of attraction. So thank you again, Beth. Please join us next week, as our guest will be Carol Look, author, speaker. She combines EFT and the law of attraction to create prosperity and abundance in our lives. So I'm looking forward to having a great discussion with Carol.
I should point out to people, she is my EFT mentor. I got my training from her.
Yes. This is going to be a great discussion then.
Yes.
Remember, everyone, you can send your questions ahead of time to us at questions@loa20.com. And if you'd like to join the conversation, just go to our website again, www.loa20.com, to learn how. Thank you again, Beth, for being our guest. And thank you to all of our listeners. And we hope you'll join us next week for more Straight Talk. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
My pleasure. Good night, guys.